Hello everyone. As always, I'm Greg Levine. As always, I'm managing editor of Firedog Lake, and this is the party line for February 25th, 2011. And Nation, you may have noticed around the site recently some posting about a story that involves, oh gosh, what? Bank of America, some hacked emails, a so-called cybersecurity firm called HB Gary, WikiLeaks Anonymous, and if you're anything like me, you probably have a hard time condensing this down to an elevator speech. It's actually kind of a complex story, and I've looked for a way to capture it, give it that high concept pitch, and I've mostly been out of luck the last couple of weeks, but I was fortunate last night. I was able to do one of those things that if you live in New York, you always say you're going to do, but you never do until somebody says, hey, do this right now, and you rush up and well, what I got to do is I got to attend a taping of the Colbert Report, and because the guest last night was Glenn Greenwald, and Colbert took this story and was able to encapsulate it in what was both unbelievably funny and so concisely insightful that I urge you. I'd show you a clip right now, but Viacom gets a little touchy about that, so I'll put a link in the post. But I urge you to take a look if you haven't seen it already. Basically, the one-liner, the great one-liner that Colbert wraps it all up with is that the Obama administration's Justice Department advised the largest bank in America where to find a corporate hacker to fabricate information that would be used to blackmail American journalists. And they totally blew it. But I don't do it justice. Take a look at Colbert. Take a look at Glenn Greenwald, who does a great job talking about this as well. But what I really want to talk about is actually the other part of the show, where Colbert had his guest Mike Huckabee on. And I had a couple of little revelations last night. The first of which is that the race for the Republican nomination is not about who acts the most like Sarah Palin. It's actually about who looks the most like Raymond Burr. And I'm not talking Raymond Burr in Ironside's Raymond Burr. Because Raymond Burr in Ironside's Raymond Burr is kind of like a good guy, right? No, I'm talking Raymond Burr in Pitfall Raymond Burr. Chris Christie. And honestly, if you're in a room with Mike Huckabee, who you don't necessarily think of as looking like Raymond Burr, because perhaps you have this memory of a trimmed down Huckabee from the 2008 campaign trail, you realize, no, he's going for that too. So looking out for the Raymond Burr lookalikes and which one's going to win in 2012 and get a chance to challenge Obama for the presidency. But the more important revelation actually comes during a part of the interview which was unfortunately cut from the show. The interview actually went on quite a while, and there are lots of little interesting bits here and there that you won't get to see if you look at a tape of the show. But you'll see part of a conversation where Huckabee and Colbert are talking about whether or not Barack Obama is a Muslim. And Mike Huckabee starts out sounding very reasonable. In fact, Mike Huckabee is very good at sounding very reasonable. And what he says is that, you know, he believes Obama is a Christian, that he thinks Obama has spent a lot of time articulating his Christian bona fides. And that's pretty much where it gets cut. But they actually go back and forth a little bit more. And finally, Huckabee says, and I take him at his word. And what's really great, actually, is at that moment, Colbert stops him and calls him on that. Because he sounded pretty straightforward, like, I know he's a Christian, he's not a Muslim all the way up until that. But then he had to throw in the little extra, and I take him at his word. And what Colbert says is, now, wait a minute, that sounds sort of like what you say to your teenager when he comes home smelling of cigarettes, and you're like, you've been smoking. And he's like, no way, I haven't been smoking. And you don't want to call him a liar, so you say, well, I'm going to take you at your word. But, of course, what you're really thinking is, you're not telling me the truth. And what was really wild is you could actually see Huckabee squirm. And he finally sort of had to take a breath, which is probably why they cut it. And he said, yeah, you're right, that's not a nice thing. That's not a good way to put it. And he mostly recanted. But it was a fascinating moment, and you unfortunately you don't get to see it, and it's unfortunate on a couple of layers, because the thing is that Mike Huckabee is really slick. I think I first saw a TV interview with him in 2006, and I thought, look out for this guy. This is a guy that's going to go places, because he does sound eminently even-tempered and very reasonable, incredibly slick, very good at deflecting questions. Never quite gives you a direct answer when you stop and sort of replay the tape, but it sounds like he's giving you a nicely framed, compact answer. In fact, his new book is about how government should be extra simple or something. But the fact is that underneath all that, there is this other guy that wants to escape but knows it's not good for his career. There's a real sort of, I know I'm right, sanctimonious, fire and brimstone, slick Willie, kind of, wrong analogy probably in a presidential race, but a slick guy who's trying to put one over on you. And Colbert does challenge, you'll see some of this in the interview, he does challenge him on the idea of whether he's a social conservative or a Tea Party conservative, and that there's a rift between these two groups. And it's actually going to be very interesting in the next year and a half, 2 years, to watch Huckabee try to sort of straddle the difference, because frankly, if it weren't for Huckabee's core supporters, the people who are always going to come out and vote for him, he could very well be president. But it's those people who are kind of keeping him social conservative honest. On the other hand, he knows now that in this Republican Party, he has to appeal to this sort of small government, simple government, Tea Party, plus, of course, the crazy wacko, I don't trust Obama because he was, you know, born in Kenya, or as a secret Muslim, or as a socialist fascist type person. And it's going to be all about watching Mike Huckabee sort of straddle that. And it's really a shame that you don't get to see the full interview, because you can see the beginnings of that struggle. And it's a struggle that, for better or worse, for good or bad, but certainly for the entertainment of us all, we're going to get to watch play out during the 2012 election. And that's my little party line for this February 25th. As always, 2 books this weekend. On Saturday, the Book Salon, 5 p.m. Eastern, will feature Julie Gracious, Alyssa Bassist, and Antonia Crane, and their book is Rumpus Women, and the chat will be hosted by Amanda Marcotte. And on Sunday, which also at 5 p.m. Eastern, Winner Take All Politics, How Washington Made the Rich Richer and Turned Its Back on the Middle Class. That's a book by Jacob Hacker and Paul Pearson. They're both going to be here at Firedog Lake for a live chat. So why don't you come on down, and I'll see you next week on the party line.